cartoonist and a university professor. And I hope you're having a great day. I'm pretty excited over here because I have a new book coming out. I've been working on this for the past, 5 years. 20 if you take all the artwork into consideration, because this next book I'm producing is a big, beautiful, oversized hardcover art book featuring 20 years of my work in comics, illustration, and design. And I've been slowly releasing some how would you say, some previews of the pages and the spreads that are going to be in this book. And I'd like to share a few of those and some unreleased ones with you right now. So why don't we start by hopping into some screen sharing. So let's get started here. I think you can see this right here. This is an image of my book that's debuting on Kickstarter November 1st, 2023. And in the meantime, you can discover more at onebiteatatimebook.com. That's onebiteatatimebook.com. That's going to take you straight to the pre-launch page over on Kickstarter, where you can click that notify me on launch button. And on November 1st, you'll get a handy reminder email letting you know, hey, this project is live. But what the heck is going to be in this book? Well, I'm super excited to talk to you about that because I'm really psyched for a couple different things. One is the content of the book itself, and the second thing I'm really excited about is the format. So let's get to the content first. This is going to feature my work in comics, illustration, and design. This is one of my more recent comic books called A Hunter's Tale, and this was originally a poem that was written by my late grandfather over 40 years ago at this point, and I converted this poem into comic book form just last year. But this is not exactly how it's going to show up in the book. As a matter of fact, if we click over to the next spread, you can see that each featured piece is going to be paired with a page of process imagery. Process is a theme that runs heavy throughout this book. And you'll see there's a number of different thumbnail images for the cover of the book itself, moving on to finished pencils and final inks before you see the final colored version on the right-hand side. I even go into some behind the scenes stuff, like the fact that I created a couple of different covers and took them all the way to fruition just to make sure that I was headed in the right direction. You know, this was a project that was very near and dear to me and my family. And of course, I was showing this around to my folks as I was making this project, and together we decided on one that we thought was the more striking of the two images. But I ended up using this for a limited edition print in the Kickstarter campaign, so included it there as well. But in addition to books, you're also going to see stuff like my design work. I've done design in neon signs, watch designs, fancy pancakes, all sorts of different stuff. And this Cthulhu themed neon is going to be featured in the book, along with the process that I use to work with clients. So this is a project that my good buddy Andy commissioned me to do. And when he did that, I initially gave him 3 different sketches to begin with and said, hey, what do you think? Which direction would you like to go? He chose a sketch, and we moved forward with the different types of colors here. And then once he selected a color scheme, then we moved forward to final fabrication with Josh Goodacre, who is just an absolute master of neon. So it was really exciting to see this come together, and I hope it's equally exciting for you to see come together as well. Hey, Call Me Steam, I see you in the chat of the live YouTube stream here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Call Me Steam says, wow, that's a lot of content on each page, packed. For amusement only games also says, hi Ryan, can't wait for your new book. Both you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. But with that said, let's show some more stuff because it's even more packed than I've showed you so far. So this is another iteration, another mock-up of what the book will look like. It's going to have dual cloth binding on the cover with this teal and brown color. dual foil stamped images, where you see this copper foil and teal foil to match the cloth itself. Let's hop into some more pages. So this book features 20 years of my work, and we're going way back to some of the first things that I ever created after I started making comics. This project that you see here was actually an interactive game that I illustrated, designed, and programmed when I was in grad school back in 2005. So 18, almost 19 years ago at this point. And the spread for this is going to take you through this game. So there's some didactic information about how the game works. This was the run cycle for the me character that I created. You see, I've got a little comic book in my hand and my ever fashion fabulous socks and sandals. And I encounter a number of different characters throughout the scene of the town that I've created here, who each of whom say, you know, mildly disparaging things about the medium of comics. And you can choose to educate or passively agree. And you are rewarded or penalized based on your choice. So that was a really fun project that I wanted to highlight in here as well. We've also got things like illustration work. This is a redesign of my logo that I did back in 2016. And you can see some of the inspiration, the beginning pencils, the final inks, and then ultimately the final illustration itself. Some more images of the book where you can see this dual foil stamped treatment does not stop on the cover, but there's also foil stamped images on the spine and back cover as well. Christina Wald chiming in here. Hey, Christina, I really appreciate you chiming in and saying hello in the YouTube chat. Thank you for coming out. I've also got things like watch designs. I've designed a number of watches for London-based company Mr. Jones Watches. This is the first, and it's called Step Right Up. It's a carnival scene, and you'll see the duck targets moving along the top show you your hour, and then the targets down below show you the minutes. And a lot of people ask me, you know, how was this created? Well, in this book, I'm going to reveal the behind the scenes for how this came to be. Basically, there are 4 different disc prints in this watch. You'll see the glass print, then the hours print, then the minutes print, and then finally the back dial where you see some background curtains back there. And you heard me say this was 4 discs. Well, over here, you see 5 discs. So what's going on here? Essentially, when Mr. Jones Watches and I were originally planning this watch, we thought we might have a 5-disc print on our hands. So I was going to isolate the characters and the front counter from the teddy bears and the curtains that you see behind them to give it a little bit more depth. We ended up sort of designing that out by the final iteration because the amount of depth that it added to the watch and the cost that it added to the watch, we didn't think it was worth the trade-off. So we ended up merging these 2 layers, and both of them are on the glass now. Before that, you can see my very first thumbnail sketch of what I thought this watch might look like. This was, you know, glorified chicken scratch that I did not think anybody could understand. So I ended up refining that sketch before I sent it to Mr. Jones Watches. You'll also see things like photographic reference that I took of myself in order to figure out how some of that foreshortening of limbs on the characters was happening. That was kind of a difficult part of this illustration for me. So I just took a picture, and then it was a lot easier for me to understand how those limbs might work. And this is my business card where, you know, this also had to be designed. And I'm really excited about the spread for this because not only are you going to see the final iteration of the business card, but there's some inspiration from these old antique books that I found to preliminary sketches. You'll see a lot of the ribbon designs, banner designs, and birds and animals as they're sort of flying around the background here. And then moving on to sketches and final inks, which I'm really excited to say these inks, both here and the back design, are printed in a high resolution scan at full size. So this is about as close as you can possibly get to owning some of my original artwork without actually purchasing it. So you'll see the first iteration of the business cards was actually teal, and I ended up shifting that color scheme eventually for the final piece that you see there. Now, I've mentioned that I'm excited about the content, but I'm also really psyched for the formatting of this book. Now, I told you that the outside has dual cloth binding, dual foil stamped images on the front spine and back cover. It's also got a built-in ribbon bookmark, copper gilded page edges, but I haven't even talked about the inside of the book formatting yet. So there's going to be a number of different specialty formatting options that I've included inside this book, like gatefold pages where they fold out to a larger size, or vellum overlays, or die cut reveals. And I know that probably a lot of that is printer jargon, so I want to demystify how some of this works. Essentially, this is a piece of original artwork that I did for a book I worked on with Nicholas Baldridge. It's called Coin-Op Carnival, and not only is this original artwork going to be printed in the book, but when it's printed, it's going to have a few die-cut holes cut into it, which will reveal behind it the final fully scanned, cleaned, and colored image that was reproduced in the book. And when that overlays on top of it, you're going to be able to see how that original artwork lines up with the final colored artwork behind it. So you can see a before image in the original artwork, an after image in the colored piece, or you can see a before and after at the same time as they line up together. So again, I'm just so excited about the possibilities for this book, and I'm really psyched for the reception that this might receive. I hope that folks are interested in checking this out. I've been working on this for a real long time, and I thought I would also share with you some very kind words from the person who wrote the foreword to my book. So the person who wrote the foreword, his name is Charles Hatfield. And if you're not familiar with Charles Hatfield is a comics scholar. He is a professor at Cal State University Northridge, and he's also the co-founder of the oh gosh, here we go. Comics Studies Society. I get that mixed up with the Center for Cartoon Studies, one CCS, one CSS. Anyhow, Charles Hatfield is the co-founder of the Comic Studies Society. And I asked him if he would mind taking a look at my upcoming book and maybe writing a foreword to it. And he obliged. So this is the very first time that this foreword is going to be publicly read, publicly announced anywhere. So first of all, Charles Hatfield, thank you so much for all of your work in comic scholarship. It's taken me through a lot of my work in grad school. I was heavily referencing your book, Alternative Comics, as I was writing my own MFA thesis. And I was just over the moon that you decided to write this. So here we go. Charles Hatfield's foreword to my upcoming book, One Bite at a Time. Charles Hatfield says, welcome or welcome back to the art of Ryan Claytor, cartoonist, illustrator, designer, maker, teacher, community builder, and perhaps above all, experimenter. For 20 years and counting, Claytor has built an artistic life around the disciplines of comics, design, and recently, engineering cool mechanical things. In his hands, those all seem like parts of one organic practice. Though Claytor's work can sometimes be soulful and melancholy, as in the recent A Hunter's Tale, what sets it apart is a joyful inventiveness, a wonky, rule-governed playfulness, as if his art were an unending game with ever-changing rules. Think of this book, which spans from mini comics to pinball, neon signs, watch design, even edible art, as a portfolio, CV, and exhibition that unpacks for you 2 decades of rule-bound improvisation and inventive practice. Phew, pay careful attention to the hands behind the curtain. As you'll read in the pages that follow, it was autobiographical comics that revived Claytor's interest in comic art and set him on this path. When I started reading his work about 16 years ago, I viewed him as both a student of the new comic studies and an autobio cartoonist indebted to a vein of confessional comics that by the late 1990s had become familiar. His cartooning had some of the graphic austerity, the willed simplicity that I often saw in autobio comics, and nothing was too ordinary or quiet for his notice. Yet, even then, the label didn't quite fit, because Claytor seemed to delight in artistic constraints and creative dialogues, as in the autobiographical documentary, for which he outsourced the characterization of himself, adapting interviews with acquaintances into comics form, or his autobiographical conversations, which adapts a dialogue about autobiography between him and one of his professors, Harry Polkenhorn. Claytor has never been simply an inheritor of the underground confessional tradition. He has always experimented. He does things differently. These days, when I think of Claytor's work, comics, zines, logos, signs, wristwatches, pinball gear, all that, I recall the word lettuce, Roger Callios' term for the rule-governed play. Far from random and spontaneous, lettuce is the sort of play that entails making, then submitting to your own rules and systems. For writers and artists, the nearest analog would be constraint-based work, the creation of art bound by self-made restrictions. Claytor does this often. His work combines playfulness, highly disciplined craft, and the logic of what I call the dare to self, as in, I've never done this before. Can I pull it off? He also has a sense of occasion. He is in the habit of seizing opportunities, gigs, openings that arise from community and collaboration and come with specific constraints. Claytor seems to be that rare bird who finds equal joy in the painstaking solitary work that comic art so often demands, the endless hours of monkish devotion, and in the communities that he can enter and become part of through his work. Look through this book and you'll see Claytor again and again, creating art for specific communities of interest. The hoary notion of cartoonist as loner does not apply. Part of his artistic gameplay is to bind himself to pastimes and communities that not only indulge his nostalgic interest, but also force him to make those interests new again by creating in a social context and providing things that people can use and enjoy in the here and now. If Claytor's art is powered partly by a deep affection for old things, and yes, he does have some of that nerd archaeologist quality we've come to expect of comic artists, what keeps him at it, clearly, is a love of conviviality that are always new. Besides a portfolio or CV, then besides a stunning display of work in so many different media, One Bite at a Time is a philosophical statement about love, learning, and play through the arts. Sure, the book has a lot to say about the how, but there is always an animating why behind it too. So, will you take one bite at a time, or will you do what I did and feast? Charles Hatfield, getting all goosebumpy reading through that. Man, thank you so much for that incredible your incredible words. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. I'm so over the moon that you are going to be a part of this milestone work of mine. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I also wanted to take just a moment to showcase some of the campaign that's coming up in 2 weeks. So if you haven't heard yet, you can go to onebiteatatimebook.com. That's onebiteatatimebook.com. And that's going to take you to this page right here, where you can see the pre-launch page. You can click this Notify Me on Launch button. And in 2 weeks' time, on November 1st, this book is going to launch on Kickstarter. But I thought I would give you a little sneak preview of some of the rewards that I've got going for you. So in a couple weeks, you'll be able to cruise over to this page. It will look like this, and the rewards are going to be, well, here we go. You can start as low as the digital book and get the entire thing sent to you for 25 bucks. The book itself is actually going to retail for $59.95. So $60 for this 250-page hardcover, oversized book with tons of bells and whistles. I've gone over the different formatting specialty items already, so I won't go over that again. But I'm discounting it 17% off cover price for the Kickstarter once it goes live, and I'm including free shipping along with it. So $50 is out the door, in your hands, in your mailbox. You don't have to think about the actual cover price, which is about $10 more. You don't have to think about shipping, which is probably another $10 more. So I think that is a killer deal to get in on this very special book. But if you'll indulge me, I'm like unreasonably excited about this next reward tier, which gives you a signed book. So I'll be putting my signature on the book for you, in addition to a commemorative patch. Now, I've never produced a patch before, and this is the thing that I'm like unreasonably excited about. We went all out on this patch. It's 100% stitching all over, so there's no bare fabric left here. Everything is stitched, and it features my 20th anniversary logo for Elephant Eater Comics. And if that wasn't enough to get you excited, it even comes with a limited edition signed numbered print that is 8 inches square with rounded corners and printed with this really stunning raised copper foil all over the print. So I've tried to include a couple of animated GIFs here so you can see what that looks like and how that really plays with the light in some nice ways. The next tier up I wanted to mention is a book club tier. So this is going to be an invitation only book discussion with me. So I'm going to show some behind the scenes presentations about the book itself. This will happen after the book is in people's hands and we all have a chance to look through it. So I'll sort of take you behind the scenes, and then I'll open up the discussion to some questions and answers. So if you've got any questions after receiving the book and reading through it, I'm there to happily answer questions or just have a discussion about comics in general. I love talking about comics in addition to my work. So happy to chat with whoever's there, but the only folks who are going to show up are the people who have enrolled in this tier. I've also got a tier for the retailers as well. For 5 books, you can get them for 50% off plus free shipping. So every single one of those books is going to have a signature on it as well. So I love supporting the retailers too. So I think that'll do it for today's live stream. Once again, if you're interested in this project, you can check it out at onebiteatatimebook.com. Right up there, onebiteatatimebook.com. That's going to take you to the Kickstarter page, whether it's pre-launch or once it's launched on November 1st, 2023. I cannot wait to share this book with you. I've been working on it for about 5 years at this point, and it's got 20 years of my work in comics, illustration, and design, with a heavy emphasis on process, really pulling back the curtain and showing some behind the scenes images and a bit of contextual writing about each piece so that you understand how that piece came to be. All right. I can't wait to see you on November 1st. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Thank you, Christina. Thank you for Amusement Only Games. Thank you, Call Me Steam, everyone, for chiming in to the live stream over on YouTube. It's great to see you here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you